I was shocked when, after 15 years of marriage, my wife finally confessed, "Yes, I had an affair, and I hid it from you. Our 2 children are biologically his. But he died years ago. The kids, they love you. You're their father." I threw her out of the house and filed for divorce immediately. But a month later, I got a call from the police. "My name is Richard Miles. I'm 60 years old. When I met my wife Stella, I had nothing to offer but rough hands and the silence of long night shifts. She was warmth wrapped in elegance, college-educated, gentle, with a laugh so bright it made people glance over their shoulders. Standing next to her felt surreal, like I'd stumbled into a life I wasn't meant to touch. She said I was her safe place, her anchor. And I believed her. Loving her felt like reaching for sunlight through a crack in a dark room. I just wanted to be enough to deserve it. At first, it was magic. Her hands always smelled like lavender. Her voice could quiet every storm in my head. She believed in morning coffees on the balcony and long walks with no destination. I believed in paychecks and promises. She once told me that her father had warned her not to marry a man who couldn't offer her the life she was raised to expect. But she laughed it off, curled into me, and said, "But you give me something they never could. Peace." So I worked harder. Took double shifts, sometimes triple. Missed birthdays, skipped dinners, but sent her flowers on Wednesdays just because. My boots sat untouched at the corner of our room. My back ached constantly. My hands cracked deeper, but I wore those wounds like medals, proof that I was fighting for us. That I was building something solid. But slowly, I noticed the change. The silences that used to feel like comfort began to feel like walls. She stopped waiting up for me. Her eyes didn't light up when I walked through the door. The house stayed clean, but her smile grew tired. And on some nights, I'd find her sitting in the dark, phone screen lighting her face, and when I asked what was wrong, she'd say, "Nothing. Just tired." I started to feel like a shadow in my own home, like I was still chasing the dream I'd once walked into. Except now, it was walking away from me. She wanted children, so I agree. I wanted to give her everything. So I worked hard, took overtime, double shifts, weekend gigs, holiday cover. I missed children birthdays and bedtime stories, school plays and family dinners because I was working for the family so they can live a better life. I memorized the sound of my kids sleeping through the front door. I carried guilt like a second skin. But every morning, they hugged me. They called me dad like it was the most natural word in the world. I didn't know I was loving someone else's legacy. I thought I was building my own. The change came slowly. First, it was her eyes. They stopped meeting mine when I spoke. Then her laughter. It echoed more often when she was staring at her phone. At dinner, she'd sit across from me, chewing quietly, her body present but spirit somewhere far off. She stopped complaining. That was the scariest part. No arguments. No raised voices. Just silence. Cold sheets. Long weekends with the girls. Excuses that didn't need to be clever, because I never asked. I started folding my work clothes more carefully, as if being neater might fix what was breaking. I brought her breakfast in bed on Sundays she wasn't even home. I cleaned the gutters, repainted the fence, booked that beach trip she once said she wanted, but she said she couldn't make it. Something about work. Something vague. I nodded. Said I understood. Kissed her forehead anyway, though she barely turned to meet me. One night, I came home early. Power outage at the site. I didn't tell her. I thought I'd surprise her. But the only surprise was mine. Her laughter filled the kitchen. Real laughter. The kind that cracked open a room. She was on the phone, barefoot, dancing slightly, wearing the old t-shirt I thought she'd thrown out, but not mine. Her back was to me, and when she turned, there was a flicker in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. Not for me, anyway. She froze, like a child caught stealing. But she didn't apologize. Didn't fumble. She just ended the call, placed her phone down slowly, and said, "Didn't expect you back so early." That was it. That was all. And I knew. I wanted to ask her who it was. I wanted to scream, to throw the phone, to break something, maybe the silence that had been choking us for months. But I didn't. I just stood there, sweaty from work, boots still dusty, feeling like a stranger in my own home. She walked past me, brushed my shoulder like I was furniture. No guilt, no shame, just distance. That night, she climbed into bed before me, rolled away, no words. And I lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment I missed, wondering if this was when I lost her. Was it the third missed anniversary? The school play where our daughter looked for me in the crowd and didn't find me? Or was it before all that, when I mistook providing for loving? Days passed like ghosts. The kids laughed and played and brought home crayon drawings of stick figures holding hands. They still saw us whole. I envied their innocence. I kissed them goodnight, packed lunchboxes, and smiled like nothing was dying inside me. Because how do you tell your children that sometimes love isn't enough? That sometimes, you can give everything, and still lose? She started locking her phone. Started going out more. Sometimes I'd hear her in the bathroom, whispering behind the door. I didn't need to hear the words to know they weren't meant for me. I remember the day I broke. A Thursday. Nothing dramatic. No affair caught red-handed. No shouting match. Just a cold cup of coffee she made for herself. Just the sound of her laughing from the balcony. Again, not at me, not with me, but someone else. And I stood in the hallway, holding our daughter's drawing. Daddy, Mommy, me, 3 stick figures in a sunlit park. But that wasn't us anymore. Not really. And still, I stayed. Because sometimes, men don't leave when they're hurt. They stay when they're invisible. They stay for the kids. For hope. For a version of the past that only exists in memory. But even hope has a limit. I found a man's watch in her car once. She said it belonged to her brother. Angela doesn't have a brother. But I let it go. Because when you love someone that long, suspicion feels like betrayal too. And sometimes, denial is easier than heartbreak. Later that night, I stared at that watch on our dresser. The way the gold glinted under the hallway light, like it belonged. I told myself maybe I'd heard her wrong. Maybe she meant cousin. Maybe it was just a friend. I built excuses for her the way I used to build furniture from scraps. Carefully, lovingly, even when things didn't fit. There were receipts I couldn't explain. Strange bank alerts I chalked up to technical errors. Spa trips I never knew about. Dinners I wasn't invited to. She'd laugh and say, "You're paranoid, baby. You work too much." And I'd believe her. Because I wanted to. Because the truth would shatter the life I thought I had. One day, our son asked me if we were still a happy family. Just like that. "Daddy, are we still a happy family?" I don't know what hurt more. His question or the fact that I had to force a smile to answer it. I started waking up before my alarm. Sitting in the dark, staring at the kitchen table we bought together 5 years ago, wondering where I went wrong. What I missed. What I gave that still wasn't enough. I thought love was about sacrifice. About showing up. But I never expected to be the only one who stayed while the other left in every way that mattered. Then came the confessions. On a Tuesday. Sunny. Ordinary. Cruel. She stood in the kitchen with a mug in her hand like it was just another morning and said, "There's something I need to tell you." She didn't cry. She didn't stammer. She just said it, like she was finally unloading a weight she'd carried too long. The affair lasted 2 years. "He's gone now," she said. "He died years ago, but I was scared to tell you. The kids, they love you. You're their father, really." She tried to turn it into a mercy, like hiding it was a kindness, like I should thank her for the lie. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just stared at her and realized I didn't recognize the person in front of me anymore. I walked into the hallway, hand on the doorknob longer than I needed, then opened it and said, "Leave." She left. No fight, no tears. As if she'd rehearsed this ending already. A month later, I got a call from the station. They asked if I could come in. Said it was urgent. At the precinct, they showed me a photo. A man I didn't know. "Do you recognize him?" they asked. I shook my head. "No. Nathaniel Blake," they said. "Former accountant. Died in a car crash 10 years ago." Stella had been using his name. offshore accounts, forged documents, wire fraud, embezzlement. Over $500,000 drained across a decade, money we had saved for the kids' futures, for retirement. All buried in fake shell companies and aliases. She had used my trust like a credit line, and I had co-signed every betrayal by looking away. They asked if I'd noticed anything. I had, little things, missing papers, sudden bank transfers, investment accounts under review. But I always thought love meant giving the benefit of the doubt. I thought loyalty meant closing your eyes sometimes. There was a file on the table. They let me see it. Passwords, IP logs, emails I had never read. I skimmed through the screenshots and felt my stomach turn. Some of the wire transfers had even been made on days I brought her flowers, anniversaries I spent alone at work to afford one more vacation she said she needed. The detective said, "We believe she was working with someone else. At first, but he died. She kept it going alone." I nodded slowly. It all made sense now. The secrecy, the calm confession. She wasn't just tired of the marriage. She was done with the scheme. I didn't take her back. I didn't curse her name in court. I signed the divorce papers with a steady hand. She tried to smile at me like a ghost begging to be remembered kindly, and then I walked away. Not bitter, not broken, just emptied. For a while, the silence in the house felt unbearable. The kids asked fewer questions than I expected. Maybe they already knew, in the way children often know things without understanding them. My daughter still left notes on the fridge in crayon. "I love you, Daddy." My son started sitting next to me during the news. We didn't speak much, but he leaned his head on my shoulder sometimes. It was enough. I went back to work, not because I needed to. I'd picked up some contract jobs, saved enough. But work gave me rhythm, gave me weight. I started running again. Joined a support group. Not for divorce, but for men who'd been defrauded by spouses. I didn't say much the first few weeks. Just listened. Eventually, I told my story and someone in the back said, "You're not alone." Funny how that can be both comforting and devastating. One evening, I found the watch again, the same one I once saw in her car. I had kept it in a drawer, hidden away like the version of myself I used to be. I held it for a long time, then finally placed it in a donation box. Some things don't deserve to be held on to. Now, years later, when people ask me what happened to Stella, I just say, she's part of my past. I don't speak with anger. I don't speak with longing. I simply speak like a man who survived something that didn't look like a storm, but felt like one. And somehow, I'm still here. Still standing. Still trying. Grief didn't come all at once. It arrived in fragments. The first time I cooked breakfast and set out one plate too many. The first school event I attended alone. The first time I reached for my phone to share a joke, and remembered there was no one on the other end anymore. That kind of grief doesn't yell. It whispers. It lingers. But so does grace. It came quietly, too, in the mornings when my daughter started humming in the kitchen while pouring cereal. In the days when my son laughed again, wild and loud, like he used to. It came in the sunlight that spilled across the living room, untouched by memory. It came in stillness. I started journaling. Therapy, too. Not because I was falling apart, but because I didn't want to carry silent wounds anymore. I realized I had spent years being strong for everyone else, and no time being honest for myself. One day, I took the kids to the lake. Just the three of us. No distractions. We skipped stones. Ate sandwiches from a cooler. My daughter drew our family in the sand. Just us three. No one missing. And I realized something I hadn't said out loud yet. We were enough. Months turned into a year. I didn't date. I wasn't ready. But I lived. I learned how to cook better. I read books. I fixed things around the house I had left broken. I looked in the mirror and stopped seeing a man who failed, and started seeing a man who forgave. Not her. Me. Forgave myself for not knowing. For trusting. For staying. For leaving. Then one day, at the bookstore, a woman asked if I had read the novel in her hand. I hadn't. We talked for a while. Nothing serious. Just words. But it was the first time I smiled and didn't feel like I was betraying something. Healing doesn't announce itself. It just shows up quietly. In small conversations. In clean kitchens. In children's laughter. And in mornings that don't feel heavy anymore. So yes, she broke something in me. But I rebuilt. And this time, I used stronger bricks. Love is not just about giving. It's about seeing clearly. Trust is sacred, but blind loyalty can become a cage. Never ignore the quiet signs that something is wrong, and don't lose yourself in the process of trying to keep someone else. Healing takes time, but it is possible. And sometimes, walking away is the bravest form of love, for yourself and for those who still depend on your strength. Please like, share and subscribe for more stories. Thank you.